are imminent in the school sector. Okay, next point, and perhaps the thing that has most attracted schools to think about becoming an academy. And again, it's in the context of the cuts that everybody knows are to come. If a school becomes an academy, it leaves the local authority, it gets the same funding from the government as a local authority school, plus a share of the money that the local authority holds back to pay for central services. And the question is, what does that mean? Because if a school leaves the local authority and has been using its services, although it will get that share of the top slice, it will then have to buy services itself. And we haven't time to go through these in detail, but just if you look at the number of them, because as well as those, there's those, and there's those. You can see that there are a huge number of central services that schools get from the local authority, although some schools do choose to get them from somewhere else. So the question is, how much would the school benefit from, financially, from leaving the authority but having to pay for those central services itself? And that means finding out how much the local authority currently holds back, and it varies from authority to authority, how much of that would be handed over to the academy, not all of it, because some has to be kept back statutorily by the local authority for central services, and then after the school has bought those services itself, is there anything left over? And I want to move on now to two final issues. And the first is this. I think this is an issue that affects not simply those involved in a particular school, but the whole local school community. And one of the questions that is raised by academies is, what is their effect in terms of social segregation and inequality in the local school system? And we know that the new academies, the outstanding ones on average, take already far fewer pupils from poorer backgrounds than the national average. Does it mean, for example, that an academy would track more pupils from other schools, and that would have a damaging effect perhaps on them? Will it affect collaboration with other schools? All schools are in various sorts of clusters and partnerships and so forth. What are the implications of that if an academy leaves the local authority? And will it encourage other schools to become academies? And if so, what are the implications, and this is my final point, for the local authority itself if gradually schools drift away from it? What effect will it have on the overall planning of school places in the area? Does it make that still possible, or will it simply descend into a chaotic system? What effect on the admissions process? How will people be able to apply? And what also will be effect on the local authority's capacity to supply services to those schools that remain with it if it is gradually losing money to schools that become academies? And that has a particular impact on those schools that are most in need, who do get a disproportionate amount of the local authority's money spent on them. I was looking at an article in the Times Educational Supplement just the other day. This is a head teacher in Devon. We do well, he says, out of becoming an academy, but I refuse to desert the less fortunate. So that's his response to this difficult issue of the impact not simply on pupils at your own school, will it be in their interests, but what effect might it have on pupils at other schools in the locality. And the final point is to do with democracy. Schools being part of a local authority system doesn't mean that they're controlled by local authorities. In fact, they have an enormous amount of freedom. But they are, in some way, accountable to elected local government. If you have a problem, you can go to your local councillor. Academies are outside the local authority, answerable to government. And the question there, I think, is, does that matter? How important is that democracy issue? Do you value the fact that schools are part of local elected government? And is there a danger in schools becoming solely accountable to government far away in London, and indeed accountable to one person, the Secretary of State for Education? So those are the issues that I've flagged up that I hope is set some sort of useful framework for discussion. Thank you.